I've been asked to reflect the literature, the practitioners, and also I've incorporated some of the things that I've seen over the last couple of days. Now, sometimes we're going to see that this might be a little bit hopeful, but I've also indicated some of the challenges that we will face if that happens. So the first thing I'm going to do is just give you the vision of practice-based education that I'm working with. It's education which directs students' learning towards preparation for practice roles after graduation, with the goal to achieve graduates who are both work-ready and employable. And that's been an issue in the past. We have had graduates, I'm not talking about CSU, I'm talking generally, who are perhaps work-ready, but not necessarily having the skills to be employable. We've had others who were perhaps employable because of previous experience, but not necessarily work-ready. Now this is based on the standards developed at CSU, and Joy, I'm sure, will speak more about that later. The other thing is workplace learning, which is a general term, and we've heard other definitions, that includes a whole range of activities that support learning. So it could be study tours, field placements, internships, clinical placements, student-led clinics, simulated work environments. And a lot of people say, but simulated environments aren't really authentic. Well, we teach aseptic dispensing and cytotoxic dispensing. And I can assure you, in those first practices, they use coloured sterile saline because I don't want to use cytotoxics while they're learning the skills. So it can nonetheless be authentic, I would argue. Okay, so why are we concerned with workplace learning? Well, it's a key and integral part of practice-based education, and what I've found in talking to people and in the literature is that it helps to correct some of those student misperceptions. And I was talking to David yesterday, whose wife is a pharmacist. She has this year a young man doing his intern or pre-registration year, and he commented that pharmacy would be okay if it wasn't for all the customers and patients. Okay, and that's a real concern. We've got someone who's, well, I suppose employable, but is he work ready? He's got misperceptions about what's possible, and what he may have been may have benefited from was an awareness of other career opportunities within the profession along the way, because certainly in my profession and many others, there's not just one stream that applies. It also provides students with an opportunity to further develop or to practice skills that they might have. In my own field again, and forgive me for referring to that, I can teach students how to counsel a patient. We have virtual patients that we developed as part of a research group with Monash, Newcastle and CSU, and we've built in some features to the patients to make them a bit more authentic. If the student diddles and fiddles, then the patient says, I've got to get a train in a minute, hurry up. And if they go past 3 minutes, the patient just walks away. So we give them a little bit of practice, but we're not training people to interact with virtual patients. So when they get out into an authentic workplace, although they have developed some skills with us and with the virtual patients, they get to see real people who behave differently. The other thing is they learn how it is to actually be a pharmacist, a nurse, a RAD, whatever, because it isn't just the knowledge. And I learnt this when I was still a student. The guru within the faculty took me aside one day and said, Miss Titmarsh, which was my maiden name, you have a lot of useful knowledge. And I'm thinking, okay, but unfortunately you're never going to benefit any patient. And I thought, oh, should I just quit now? And I said, oh, but why, Mr. Harris? And he said, because you don't share it. You haven't developed the skill of educating a patient. You know it, you can reproduce it on an exam, but you can't share it. And he put a lot of effort, he was a very visionary educator, into developing that skill in me and some others of my colleagues. So he was, I guess, doing university integrated learning at that stage. But it's important to not only have the knowledge to look the part, but also to perform the role. Well, does it matter? Yes, it is important that people have authentic knowledge and have skills and abilities for the real world rather than just the virtual patients and these sorts of things, because health professionals, other professionals, people in industry, people in business, people in advertising, they all deal with complex issues that can be ill-defined, that have got very short deadlines, and they need something done, okay? And the other reason is if we separate work and learning, we disconnect the learner from their ultimate goal. They actually want to be, one hopes, that profession. It's practice-based education also focuses not on making people future ready and capable, but also on being and becoming and enjoying becoming that professional. So who are the stakeholders that I'm going to talk with you and share my thoughts and research about? Academic and administrative staff, workplace learning supervisors and future employers, and you'll find that I've actually gathered them together when I consider them, because quite often they're one and the same. The community that we serve, the professions, the regulatory and registering authorities, who certainly in the area of health but also in other areas are having a greater and sometimes significant role. And of course the universities are key stakeholders. We can hardly ignore those. Now, I don't know about you, but I've been an academic for a while, and you see the next new change and you say, okay, so we've got this, we've got that. Why would we want to change and focus on practice-based education and workplace learning? Well, it reflects government and industry and business concerns about a skills and labour shortage. We have the baby boomers retiring, and we have other people who find themselves perhaps unemployable in their current job in their 50s and need to be retrained. There's also, as I reflected earlier, concern about the work readiness of graduates, not in the area of their occupation, but in their general life and employability skills, knowing how to talk to someone. All of those sorts of things that are important. So communication, and particularly at written communication. We have graduates who fail the board registration exams because they cannot write a letter to a doctor advising them of an issue with a patient. Okay, so it's not just the ability to talk, where many of our graduates are very skilled, but it's the ability to communicate widely. It's the ability to work in teams, because we solve problems in business, in health, very effectively in working in teams, whether it's a team within the discipline or whether it's a broader team. And we in pharmacy actually have workplace learning in second year, where our students have to go to a health site that is not a pharmacy. So they see what other people do and the benefit that they add to the patient's health outcome. Also problem solving, enterprise, planning and organising, because real world is complicated and it's all about finding solutions. I tell my students I don't want them to just identify a problem, I want them to come to the person, whether it's the doctor, the patient or whomever, and say, I've identified this and here are a number of solutions, and work with the person to develop an acceptable solution. Okay, so there's challenges for the university as a result of some of those, but also because our graduates now enter a world of basically 24-hour activity, and we need to bring together all of those people to actually develop an effective solution. There's been some challenges, however, and will undoubtedly be some challenges in a paradigm shift towards practice-based education, because increasingly we're getting numbers of workplace learning opportunities and practice-based education in areas where it's not been traditional. So the concern is a tradition in a discipline like nursing, education, how easily and how can it at all fit in another discipline area? We need to reframe and embed a different pedagogy. And in fact, we're concerned very much with adult learning. And so we've gone from the information transmission model to the person doing a needs analysis and self-directing their learning. We also face the obvious one of securing enough effective workplace learning opportunities. We have to look at the skill set of our current academic and administrative staff, because suddenly adding PBE and stirring is not as easy as it might sound. Workplace learning administrative staff need to gain new skills. Workplace learning academics need to develop new activities as well. And there's that need, as we saw yesterday, for those who were fortunate enough to listen to Judith Anson from the University of Canberra, the need to partner with industry and the professions to get effective preparation for our students. They partnered with ACT Health and Siemens and the university to effectively offer education to graduates in medical laboratory science. The other thing to realise, and sometimes when you just add PBE and STIR, it's not appreciated that it is resource intensive. It takes time, money and effort. So, as I've said, it's a change of focus in the way we deliver. It's from an individual to more of a group, a team, a social contract. So now let's look at some of those participants. In an ideal world, if practice-based education is the focus in their course, what can they expect? Well, they can expect relevant teaching. Hopefully they can expect innovative teaching as well. And we saw Megan talking to us yesterday using Second Life and some of those other virtual environments. Some of our nursing colleagues are using games to actually engage their students and mimic some of the activities of real life. Some of our discipline qualified colleagues actually use active involvement. I was watching one of my colleagues on the Oval the other day, and he had arranged with the students for all the girls to come in wearing pink or red, and all the guys to come in wearing blue, and he then had them acting out as cells within the body. And he was saying, now move apart. Okay, you've just demonstrated diffusion. Move back together again. You've just formed an organ. And so he was demonstrating different ways of actually understanding a concept that was requiring their active involvement, as goodwill does. It provides the bridge between the theory of the university classroom and the actual reality of the workplace. But it needs courses developmentally scaffolded. Okay, the workplace is different, and there are skills, not technical skills, but skills of getting on with people, of knowing systems that are particularly important. And I can speak for CSU, 50% in round figures of our students are first generation university attendees. So they can't necessarily call on the same social capital as students could in the past. And it's important to situate their disciplinary knowledge now in the wider world. Okay, graduates and early career professionals. And for me, an early career professional is someone in about that first 5 years, as they're solidifying their concept of themselves as a nurse, a RAD, a pharmacist, a physiotherapist. So they're going to be, we hope, flexible, innovative, confident, and I can remember how non-confident I was when I graduated, responsive graduate, okay, so they've developed the skills and experiences, who experience actually a smooth transition to the workplace, so that they know what they're intending to do, they know what they've chosen, and they're going to just slot in. They will have well-developed critical thinking skills and decision-making skills, and they will be those effective communicators, because so much of the developing workplace is about communicating and negotiating solutions across boundaries. They're going to be committed to lifelong learning, and as I've said, they're going to think globally but apply that locally, and they're going to be doing accurate needs assessment on themselves. So they're going to be doing, in essence, a SWOT analysis. So they're going to say, okay, this is how I'm going, I'm reflecting on that, I'm going to need to develop some additional skills and abilities here, I'm going to need some mentoring there. Okay, so the professions, what are they going to want? Well, firstly, a profession for my purpose is an occupational group with common traits that has specific occupational skills and abilities, a high level of personal commitment and a continuing commitment to professional development to suit areas of specialisation and maintain competency. So the first thing when you talk to members of a profession that they want is they want the students to be socialised into that profession when they arrive as graduates. They want them, as someone said to me, to use the common vocabulary, to have the common view. Not necessarily identical, but common ways of addressing and interacting. And they're expecting that our students will have had significant, authentic or simulated work activities during learning so that they're actually going to be prepared for that practice. They're going to have had guidance and mentoring from experienced practitioners both within the university and within the workplace and in adjunct appointments. And they're going to be effective, competent practitioners, which perhaps arguably we always graduated, but with adaptable professional knowledge for that uncertainty and change that is about there. Okay, then we have the people we serve, the community. What can they expect? And one of the things that came out from the literature and from talking to people was trust, that they can actually rely on our graduates. Whether it's in business, so they're interested in confidentiality, because they have concerns about younger people's use of social media, Facebook, Twitter, and of course there are always the cases that make the news, the doctors who were chatting about their patients on Facebook and could be identified, the privacy aspects, whether that's again in business or in health, but generally they're looking for respect and understanding. They're also looking for minimum standards of service delivery because I'm sure we've all experienced it at times. There's the good professional, there's the great professional and there's the not so good professional, and you hope you get one of the first two. So we're looking at minimum standards of service delivery. We're looking at professional and industry consultation to reflect the real world, the increasing consumerism, the increasingly better educated general public. So when we look then at academic staff and practice-based education, we're looking at the ones who are professionally qualified and feeling valued, which has not necessarily always been the case. We're looking at the discipline qualified who contextualise their practice. I can remember many years ago talking to, let's just say someone in a nat and phys, and I asked them what they would teach my student in pharmacy differently about a nat and phys from what they would teach Megan's student in physiotherapy, and they blithely assured me nothing. A nat and phys was a nat and phys, excuse me. Okay, now we need to contextualise that, and they are doing that. So we're getting now relevant, contemporary, up-to-date outcomes for students. We're providing more opportunities for students to think critically and developing those higher order thinking skills. So we're developing more capacity in our students. They may not have any more knowledge, but they have the ability to solve problems and work collaboratively. I'm sure we're all seeing a lot more team projects in our subjects. And the other thing for staff is increased networking with the field or profession, which helps us maintain our currency of practice, enhances the reputation of the course, and also gives us opportunities for research. Recently I drove to Harden to meet with some pharmacists who are having a problem, and we've now actually managed to put in a research project to support them and actually encourage 2 of them to pursue a professional doctorate. So they get their own solution as well. Okay, however, it's not without the challenges. People are sometimes concerned about maintenance of academic standards. If we put someone into one of those messy workplaces, are they learning inferior or different things? There's a concern about quality and quality enhancement, that we not just develop practice-based education and workplace learning, but that we aim to improve it, that we manage risk in an authentic workplace, okay? And that's an interesting question, because a workplace shouldn't necessarily be any more risky than one of my labs, for example, with chemicals everywhere. But there are other risks. There's workplace harassment and bullying. There's other sorts of risks that can and need to be considered. We need relevant assessment practices, and that can pose some challenges, because there's that risk of the parity of esteem. Do we esteem what's done in the workplace as much as we esteem what's done in the university? The administrative staff who work with us and support us would like, this is directly from staff that I interact with, they'd like a clearly articulated vision of our program and our philosophy, effective data management. Now that they're having to deal with other providers like New South Wales Health, ACT Health, the systems don't talk nicely sometimes. They would love, and I'm sure we all would, cooperative, engaged students who meet all the legal and prerequisite requirements, and workplaces that will offer students quality, authentic experiences. Because sometimes our workplace supervisors try too hard. They get all the nice, easy cases for the students to see so they can solve them. Okay, so what sort of challenges do they still face? The requirements of workplaces, in my experience, are rising. Initially, we just had to have for ourselves immunisations. Then workplaces started asking for first aid certificates. Now they're asking for evidence of a verifiable OH&S induction. There are the challenges of data management, and sometimes they're being solved with customised programs. And as our colleagues have said, they're not always provided with a clear vision and guidance of what we would like. So what about the people that our students interact with, the workplace supervisors, their future employers? And many supervisors do use workplace learning as an opportunity to look at our students. They would like a future fit, ready now student and graduate. And as I was reporting yesterday, a colleague described this beautifully. They likened the student and graduate to the Christmas turkey, and what they wanted the person to be was oven ready and self-basting. So those are the characteristics they'd like: problem solving, customer focused, able to work independently, but fitting nicely into a team. So what are the challenges for those employers and supervisors? Often we find involvement in assessment. They have views, but they don't wish to be involved in assessment as easily. They're comfortable with saying satisfactory or unsatisfactory for professional skills, but not so happy with anything that smacks of grading. They find sometimes a challenge in providing quality activities because real life is unpredictable, it's less bounded. A student doesn't just gain this particular skill that we might have wanted them to, and they often have to work with incomplete information, whereas we tend to give them a little bit more. They also have a likely need to be trained to supervise. Even quite recent graduates haven't been trained in that educative and supervisory role. The regulatory and registering authorities are looking, because the future is uncertain, for practice sites to be offering diverse opportunities to our students. And I attended a gathering when the national registering authorities were formed for the 10 health professionals, and they identified that we did not necessarily graduate work-ready individuals, and they found that that was a concern for them. So they're looking for new options for ongoing professional development now within the workplace, so not for additional opportunities and conferences per se, but within the workplace to reflect our own needs, opportunity for specialisation and development and accreditation or credentialing of workplace learning activities. So basically, in summary, practice-based education has the potential to meet stakeholders' expectations. There are some challenges, but there are some developments that are very, very positive. The change that I most noted was from individualistic knowledge focus to building capacity and working collaboratively. There were some expectations and demands from profession, industry and regulatory bodies reflecting previous dissatisfaction, but I think that we are starting to address those issues, and so I see that we can address many of those expectations. Thank you.